Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Build Amazing Things Securely. I'm Laura Bell Main, and I am joined today by somebody from a very special industry, not one we hear about much in security, so I'll let her share that, but it's going to be fun. So it's my pleasure to welcome Jax Garrett here. So welcome, Jax.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. I can't wait to get into this conversation.
Cool. All right. So like we do with every guest, I'm going to ask you, Jax, can you introduce yourself as a human? Who is Jax?
I am human, yes, and I will introduce myself as such. I am Jax Garrett, the CEO and founder of GGWP Academy. I my son was a pro at Pokemon, and he started to travel the world in, competing at Pokemon on his 3DS. And I saw that industry, the industry of gaming, was highly fragmented, and there wasn't a lot of education going on in that space. And so I set out to change that. I wanted to educate content creators and the industry itself, as well as clients, on how to engage that space and make the most of it. And then I wanted to professionalize it. I wanted to provide a streamlined platform that will allow brands and creators to connect on marketing campaigns. So we're essentially an e-learning and influencer marketplace platform for gamers.
Do you know what I love about this, Jax? And I'm sure many of our audience will share this kind of dirty secret in our past. That many of us have been gamers, whether it's, your Candy Crush generation or your World of Warcraft or whatever it was.
Or Amiga.
No, now we all feel old, Jax. Don't do it. Don't do it. We do this as audio, not video, so they can't see the grey hairs. So we've all got, a little element of a link to gaming. And what I love about this is we're in that technology space with your organization, with your software, that is taking something that we don't associate with security at all, gaming and fun and kids competitions. And then we're turning this into what sounds to me like a double-sided marketplace, like the type of thing we would see in financy type companies in e-commerce. And that's kind of cool because, when you cross from one to the other, you don't really expect that you'd start talking about Pokemon and very quickly end up in a marketplace.
Yes. And yes. So we did end up with a two-sided marketplace. It didn't start out like that. It kind of meandered through to that. The more we looked at the space, the more we looked at its needs and the people within it, the more it kind of morphed into this two-sided marketplace. So it certainly didn't start out that way. It started out as an e-learning. I just wanted to educate the market, and that was going to be a subscription model, and that was going to be it. And then, we started talking about, but how do we actually get the people who want to learn about becoming content creators? How do we get them hired and working with brands and really create an ecosystem whereby, the money is flowing well. The brands are getting great ROI out of this industry because it is a new medium in terms of advertising and marketing. And a lot of brands don't really know how to navigate that particular, scene. Because when you talk to a gamer, you're talking to a very specific genre of people. And I think that everyone kind of fits into that bucket, in varying degrees. There's serious, gamers, esports athletes. There's people who make a living out of this. And then there's, mum with a tablet who's playing Candy Crush. So there's a very, very variable sliding scale there of gamers.
So just to give you some audience of the background here, I met Jax over a year ago now. And have been watching as she grows her organization. She's not a security person, but that's cool. She's totally the woman to be here today, because this gives us a really interesting opportunity to talk through from grassroots, the different security challenges and things that happen in these kind of spaces. So how many of us amongst us have, built a piece of software that was one thing to start with and it's grown into something else? Most of us, because, we very rarely know on the first day what we're going to build. And how many of us have, varied audiences? Well, probably all of us. And I'd love to dig into those audiences a bit, because that's a really interesting mix, especially if we come back later to talking about how we build security into this. You've got, at one end, you've got the gamers who are already different categories of people and users and behavior. And then you've got the brands. Now, I'm not a marketing person. This is where my limit of my knowledge is going to come in. But I feel like they're not the gamers, and that they're going to have a different set of concerns. So can you walk us through, what, and we're going to offend people by generalizing here. Sorry, audience. If you are a gamer, don't be offended by anything that comes next. Can you generalize, if you were coming up with a profile of, the type of person, a persona for the gamer side, and then the more brand side, how different are they?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, first I'd like to preface this entire conversation by saying that I am non-technical founder. I am not the security guy. I am not the dev.
Anyway.
I'm not that person. I actually come from a communications and marketing background. I've run previous businesses myself. So I'm coming from a business perspective and a gaming perspective. I'm not necessarily coming from a technical perspective, but I just wanted everyone to understand that when I start talking. Look, when I talk about our audiences, we definitely have different personas that we've identified within our audiences. And they range from, young gamers like my son who are heavily interested in gaming, the Fortnite bros. Everyone knows what I'm talking about when I say that. I'm talking about, the maybe 14 to 18-year-old guys who are, and I say guys because it's roughly 70% guys at that age who are gaming, and the types of games that they're playing, right up until I think where we sort of draw the line in terms of actual gamers is that maybe 40, roughly 45. And these guys have been in it, for the long haul. They've grown up with an Amiga or whatever, and they've kind of seen the evolution of tech slowly mean that the pixels and the pictures and everything gets so much better over the course of their life. Really, it's been the background to their life, and now they're having children and they're allowing them to game more and participate in that and maybe follow careers in that and things like that. And we're also starting to see the fact that when we look at the difference between male and female gamers as well, we're starting to see things like if a girl is allowed to experience gaming and be a part of that as a hobby or whatever, she is 3 times more likely to go into a STEM career.
Wow.
How exciting is that for the future?
I'm totally going to ring my mom. I need to tell her that, her letting me play computer games is because that's why I'm here. So hooray.
Super important stuff because it allows you to problem solve. It allows you to, get really engaged by something that can really work with your imagination. You're sort of transported to a whole new place. And I think that's what gaming is about. It's that little bit of escapism. It's that little bit of problem solving and engaging your intellect. There's so many aspects that really draw us into gaming.
So when they're interacting with your platform, then, they're doing so as potential content creators, right? It's almost like fledgling marketing or influencer marketing for gamers, right?
Yeah.
Now, what kind of information are they sharing in that platform? What if I'm going to go do this? I'm not, by the way, I'm way too old and I have no energy for this. But if I was, what kind of information would I need to share to kind of set myself up in that space?
Yeah. So we're asking our users to give us the basic information in terms of, your profile. Let's set up your account. It's your standard information. I guess when it becomes really interesting, like, a lot of other platforms, we ask you to engage your social media platforms so that we know, who you are, what kind of, content you produce. And it actually allows us to scrape. So we're looking at tweets in particular to understand the kind of wording that somebody uses about their content. And that allows us to put them in buckets or categorizations in terms of brand personality.
Okay. Now I'm intrigued. I feel like I'm going to get my own spirit animal at the end of this. Right. Come on. Tell me, how does this work?
Look, we're not far from that. We are trying to basically look at the brand personality of a commercial brand. So looking at McDonald's, Coke, Red Bull, all these big brands that, might want to spend money in gaming, and we're categorizing them. Now, this has been previously done on many other marketing models. We're doing this again at the moment to see if they hold up in gaming. If it doesn't, we're producing our own. That's kind of where we're at. we're then also applying the same rules to gamers as content creators. So looking at the words that they use to describe themselves, the colors that they use to represent themselves, how they talk about themselves, everything that we can find online about that gamer to basically tell us what category they also fit in. Because when we create an alignment between, a commercial brand and an influencer brand, what we expect to happen is that the ROI is going to go up by I think it's going to 10x it, but we're still in the process of actually delivering that research. So it's early days on that, but we are actually working with the University of Newcastle right now to deliver this.
That's
and
really cool.
Our first app that will give us, some preliminary information and data back is going to be done by the end of this week, which is exciting. And we'll be delivering that to our community over the coming weeks, under NDA, of course. But we're really excited to get this across the line in the next 3 months.
See, this is why I do this podcast, right? Security isn't about security. We don't wake up in the morning and go, you know what's fun? SQL injection. I'm just going to do that today. We wake up in the morning as technologists and as business owners, and we want to build something amazing that solves a problem. And, your problems come from a very personal relationship-based place. And it's awesome. And what we get to do is apply these modern tools, these emerging technologies to do this. Now, there's undoubtedly going to be people in the audience who hear the words, I take all of your tweets and then I put you in a category and think about some kind of creepy line. I have no doubt. And people will have feelings and opinions. That's what the internet does. But, let's think about this on a more general level. This is not the first time people have done this. We've been putting people in boxes for as long as we've been people. So, are there any risks? And I'm asking you to, Jax, I apologize. I'm asking you to do this on the fly. It's a bit cruel. But let's talk this through. Because that's what we do in security, right? We do a bit of a threat assessment on a new thing we're building. Now, I don't think there's going to be anything earth-shattering here, spoilers team, but let's do it together. Let's have a talk. So what are the things here? Well, we're pulling in all of the content from somebody's social media. So is there any risk in that? Let's have a talk about that. What do you think, Jax?
Well, look, first and foremost, we're asking, and this is in the beginning when we're building the MVP, we're actually asking our content creators to self-identify. Cool. And when we bring in their social media and everything, it is only to bolster that. So they're well aware of what we're doing with the data.
Awesome.
And at the end of the day, it's to benefit them. It's to benefit them so that we can create a really genuine match between them and a brand that will make sense on both ends for the user, because, they'll believe in the same message. And they'll be able to work with that brand, and for the brand so that they can engage a user who potentially has the same audience and they can get the best ROI from that campaign. So really at the end of the day, we're asking them for baby steps, self-identify, answer these quizzes for us so that we can put you in a box and tell you what brands you should be working with to get the best bang for buck.
Awesome.
And then at the end of the day, we're going to be bolstering that by scraping and then basically just looking at maybe we can say you're 50% this and 50% that, or maybe, you might be 70% one particular personality and 20% something else and 10% something else. So we can just get a little bit more granular about who that influencer is, the better the data that we get, basically.
Yeah. And I think the important thing to remember is we all we have that instinct to feel that creepy line. But what we're talking about is public information. The influencers, they're already, this is publicly open information.
And anyone who works in an agency is already looking at every content creator's tweets, at all of their content to establish whether they fit the bill for a particular brief or job anyways. We are just simply automating that would be.
Yeah, awesome. So I'm going to ask, and you can totally throw the NDA card at me. That's cool. Just have it ready to throw. Do you keep that data, or is it do you keep the tweets and things afterwards, the copies that you're doing your analysis of, or just?
Look, that part of the product hasn't been built yet. I'll be honest. Amazing. We're still working on that. And that's something, one of the questions that we're working through and how we work through that. So there's no NDA to throw, but we're still in the process. Like I said, we're in the process right now of delivering the MVP. So we'll do that at the end of this week. Next week, we'll get our data back. In the meantime, we also have data scientists and PhD students working on how we build out those containers or those personality groupings.
Yeah.
So we're still very early days, and I don't have an answer for you there
No,
yet.
that's good. No, that's a perfect answer.
Update you.
No, because see, that's the joy of designing and developing from an MVP, right?
Yeah.
Every time you hit one of these questions, if you haven't done it yet, it's an opportunity. It's a decision that a company makes. Do I store the data? And, there's benefits because you get to do stuff with it afterwards. But then there's the downside that you've got all of this data lying around. Now, it is public data. So, again,
for us, it's really just important that we are able to categorize you effectively. I don't feel like it's important for us to keep that data.
Yeah,
I feel like it's just important to put you into a box, for lack of better words. I know that sounds horrible, but to put you into a box and then we're done. Then I can connect you with the right brands. It really doesn't matter what you said on one particular tweet. We're not going to hold on to that or really even care.
Yeah.
It's just about the overall sentiment of the words that are used, maybe over your last 1,000 tweets or 5,000 tweets, or you know what I mean? So
can I ask a question on that? This is just my naivety, so I'm going a bit off script. Sorry, audience.
Go for it.
How many tweets does an influencer make? And, what's an average here? Like, how much noise?
They tweet a lot.
Okay.
It's not the same for every industry, though. You might find that fitness influencers are far more, on Instagram than they are on Twitter. But in gaming, for us, they're on Twitter a lot. They're on Reddit. They're on Discord. So there's a lot of places where we can find a lot of writing from gamers that will talk about their own content. So there's, it works well for our industry. But eventually we would love to get to the point of, we can scrape YouTube and look at all of the videos and look at your facial impressions to see how much sentiment analysis you have, whether you truly believe what you're saying or whether you don't.
Oh, creepy.
I know. And that does sound a little bit creepy. So we're trying to do this in the best possible ways. And we do consider, what does this mean for the influencer? What does this mean for, how else can this technology be used? And what does it mean for the brand as well? So always keeping those things in mind, and obviously, doing the best that we can to make sure that everything is nice and safe. We have a really fairly qualified CTO who's worked for some of Australia's top startups. Yeah. So I feel like he's qualified for the job.
That's good.
I mean, obviously, when it comes to security, there are definitely things that you might need to outsource, like coming to you. Even having this conversation, I'm starting to think of things that, we probably need to start having conversations about with you.
Well, I always love having a conversation with you guys. I think what's interesting, if I just kind of put my security lens on this a second, is there's no compliance element here, right? There's no government scheme. You're not carrying PII. You're not, you're not a bank. You're not healthcare. And so it's very easy for us to just kind of discredit that as not needing security. But the more we talk about this, the more you realize it's not security because security is keeping, government secrets safe. It's security where it meets sensitivity, where it meets, practicality. In your case, you're getting a lot of, very noisy tweeters, and you've got to get through all of that data. Yes, you've got to keep whatever you store safe and those decisions safe and those people safe in your platform. But at the same time, those are choices you can make pragmatically as a business rather than just because somebody's got a big stick. Now, tell me about your brands that are on the platform, because, they feel like they're going to be a very different group to your gamers. What kind of information do they put into the platform? And, how do they think about risk, or how can we think about it on their behalf?
The good news is that these brands that are on the platform or coming onto the platform now, they already know what kind of category they fit into, because they've been putting together this brand over the last 10, 20, 30 years. And so they know very well what tone of voice, what colors, what, how it should look, smell, touch, everything. Yeah. And so when it comes to this, they're easily self-identifiable. They can come to the platform, they can set up all of their payment details and, billing and everything else, but they can simply tick a box that says, we are this. And it's no secret. You could analyze their branding online, and I can tell you
do
what
this yourself.
Exactly right. So really they're self-identifying that information. We're not even looking at theirs to like test it, because at the end of the day, it's only on them. If they want the best possible genuine matches, then they need to be as close to accurate as possible there.
Yeah, it feels like from their side, you get back into more traditional marketplace sort of security, where it's, the details of the contracts that they're putting out and how much they're paying people are the sensitive things they wouldn't want sharing, wider than the audience that's intended.
Yeah, I think the only time that we sort of, I think the only time that we start to look at the things that we need to be really accurate about, I feel like there's an opportunity here for gamers to want to game the system, for lack of better words. They might want to work with a certain type of brand, but they're not creating the content necessarily that would align well with that. So I feel like there's some really, I don't know, very short answer kind of ways that they could change their quiz answers and game this system. But that's why we're looking to bolster it further by the scraping of tweets, so that we can make sure that they're in the right box and then working with the right brands.
And I mean, it sounds to me, not a gamer, not in this space, but if I just kind of process it a minute, it feels like you end up coming up with a linguistic fingerprint, if you will, of a gamer, of an individual or an influencer. And then theoretically, and I'm not saying you do this or would do this, but you could then run that fingerprint at intervals and check for that being consistent over time.
Correct.
Which I would imagine in a marketing relationship would be really important, because if you've got somebody who, is selling, soft drink number 3 today, and then suddenly goes completely off the reserve and does some crazy stuff on the socials, that brand relationship is probably not ideal at that point, because the internet remembers.
Yeah. Totally correct. We are basically looking at these guys for not only the sentiment analysis of right now, but how consistent that is over time. Because anyone can be in a mood and talk a certain way for a couple of days, depending on how they're feeling about a topic, or, you might have a content creator who is going through, it could be a bout of depression. So they're having negative thoughts about their content. They're not feeling confident. They're, and so they'll tweet a different way. But for them, that might only last maybe a 2-month period or whatever it lasts for, but it's not their overall personality, if that makes sense. So there is more contextual, this is happening right now versus who they are as a person, what they wholly believe. So doing those interval checking is very important to us, and maintaining that accuracy.
Yeah, and as a security nerd and looking at other software projects, there might be folks out there who are listening to this who maybe you have a similar sort of data set where, you're trying to track if a person is still the same person. If something has fundamentally changed, maybe there might be a new risk. So if somebody is behaving off, being unusual in some way, that can be an early indicator that something's wrong, and that could lead to risks for them or for others. So yeah, that's a really interesting way to kind of create. It must be a really valuable experience for your content creators and your brands, but also I love how the technology is allowing it to be more than just self-select on a quiz with time, that it's going to be something that is you. It's something that can be gained from looking at the content you produce, not your reflection of that content.
Yeah. I mean, we're working with a highly intelligent audience as well. Gamers on average are, I hate to say it, more intelligent than the average audience. They earn more, they have more disposable income. I know, right? But at the end of the day, we're dealing with people who know what the terms and conditions mean. So we're speaking to them in a very transparent way and letting them know that this is what we're doing, this is why we're building it, you're going to benefit from it, and they can make an informed decision on this, because gamers tend to be the people who read the terms and conditions. I'm not saying that's of everybody in the industry, but it tends to be more likely across our industry that would happen, and they would understand it. So I guess we're lucky in one way that we feel secure knowing that they know what we're doing, and they have genuine questions about this all the time. We have someone in Discord, saying, so what do you do with our data, and, how does this work, and blah, blah, blah. And, someone from our tech team will will, jump on and answer the feedback. So we're able to have those honest, transparent conversations with our community of users. And I mean, we've got about 15,500 users on our platform. So, we get these fairly often. I guess the bad news is that we're always having this conversation. I think we need to have a frequently asked questions, just
sounds like
or something like that maybe. But it's good that we're having the conversation anyways. I feel more secure knowing that our audience understands this well.
I mean, for me, I talk to people from all sorts of industries, and for an industry that we wouldn't expect to have a security focus, that's actually a more healthy, more transparent kind of interaction pattern about, a company sharing, this is what we're doing and this is what you can expect from us, and the customers feeling enabled to ask those questions and have that discussion. And
it's just up to us to provide more value than risk.
Yeah.
That's what the algorithm looks like. It's, are you providing me enough value for me to, risk giving you all of my information?
Yeah.
And for these content creators who are trying to become full-time content creators and earn money through it, for them, the risk is typically worth the value that we're providing them.
Yeah. And coming back to that and wrapping up and talking about that risk, it's public information.
Yeah.
And so the nice thing about this is, we get to have that mental kind of fight goes on between, but it's scraping and it's machine learning, it's categorization and all these things. There's a lot of feelings and opinions about, but these are people who are intentionally building brands for themselves online, and that's hard work. And so, I can totally see how they would see this as a valuable thing, and how the brands would then be able to use that to their advantage. I've had such fun today, Jax. This has been amazing. I love hearing about your passion for this, and I love how we're finding cool technologies in the most unlikely places. I'm very excited to see where this goes next. So you have to promise to come back one day and tell us what other technologies get put through this, and what you learned on the way.
Oh, absolutely. Would love to come back. Thanks for having me. It was great to talk about what we're doing and the industry that we do it in. At the end of the day, we're really passionate about that, and so is our community. So, it makes these conversations really easy for us. So,
let me make it a little easier. We're going to have folks who are like, what is this? I have no idea. I want to learn more about this what is it? Tell us where are the links? Where are the key details, Jax?
For sure. So if you go to www.ggwpacademy.com, and you can find me, Jacqueline Garrett, on LinkedIn.
Fabulous. Look, whether you go because you are an aspiring creator, you never know, you could be out there, or because you're curious about what technology is being built in the world, then it's a good reason to go and check it out. Thank you once again, Jax, and join us again, team, next time where we have another exciting adventure into amazing technology. Don't forget to like, subscribe, do all of those crazy dances. And if you can suggest another guest for us, please do get in touch, because we love to meet new people, especially those people building something they're truly passionate about. Take care.